Okay, well, yeah, thank you very much for inviting me and having me on your podcast today. My name's Keith Slaughter, and I'm pleased to be here. I've had a pretty extensive career, the majority of which was in the FBI for about 25 years. And during that time, I had the opportunity to investigate a number of frauds and crimes that specifically targeted the elderly and senior citizens. And I learned a lot from that over many, many years. Very tragic experiences, seeing people swindled oftentimes out of their entire life savings, and just tear-jerking stories that have impacted and stayed with me for many, many years. Um, when I was young and went to college, I really had uh, no idea or interest in joining the FBI, to tell you the truth. I went to school to become an accountant, so I thought, and did eventually become a CPA. But when I got to college, I knew nothing about the FBI, and if I'm being honest, I barely knew what the initials stood for, let alone what the organization did. Um, but my college roommate, it was really all he ever wanted to do. He went to some sort of campus fair when he was in high school and was hooked. And anyone who met him would know within 5 minutes what he intended to do for a living. So I was excited for him and happy for him that he wanted to do this thing. And then we both graduated, went our separate ways. He was also went into accounting. Me because I thought it's what I wanted to do for a living. He did it because he wanted to join the FBI and it was a good way to do it, a good way to get your foot in the door. And sure enough, at almost the minimal age, he got in. He went through the academy. I visited him there. And after that whole experience, I still was not, I thought it was very cool and interesting, but I was still not wowed enough to make a career change. And then when I was about 26 years old, about 4 years out of school working for a CPA firm, I finally sat myself down and I said, Keith, do you really want to do this for the rest of your life? Do you really want to do accounting work? And the answer, if I was being honest, was no. But this was the path I had chosen. So if I was going to do something radically different, now was probably the time. So I picked up the phone one day and I said, "Hey, man, tell me about this FBI thing." And he did. And one thing led to another, and I was very fortunate to get in myself and follow in his footsteps. And I've been become a firm believer that the people who you meet in life, in one way or another, often not only do they become friends, and he's still my best friend in many ways, but they influence your life, sometimes forever. And had I not met him in college, there's no way I would have ever pursued this career. It absolutely was not going to happen. So I owe him a lot for that. He reminds me regularly that I owe him a lot for the experience. But then we reunited after I was in the FBI. He was in Salt Lake City and I was in Miami. And that's when we both were working on a national anti-telemarketing fraud
Mm.
investigation that brought the two of us and several others together, where we worked in an undercover capacity, infiltrating boiler rooms around the country in hotspots like Miami and Fort Lauderdale, Salt Lake City, San Diego, Houston, and many others, where the problem was prevalent. And we had a lot of success with an operation called Disconnect that involved a takedown of over 1,000 criminals
Mm.
in 1993. And that was followed up with another case that was even larger in magnitude, codenamed Senior Sentinel, where we went about things a little bit differently. But the good news there was we took a lot of criminals who were harming a lot of people with their tactics in telemarketing fraud. But along that way, along that 2.5 year undercover journey, I also got to know firsthand many victims and hear their stories about what they had gone through and how it had impacted them. Sometimes so detrimentally that they would never be able to enjoy the type of retirement that many of us do.
Mm. Mm.
That's how badly they had been afflicted by this, I'll call it a disease, this horrible thing that was going on for many years. And telemarketing still exists, but not in the way that it did then. And I think today fraudsters have, built on that and they have found new ways to scam people out of their hard-earned money, particularly the elderly. And that is still a segment of our society that unfortunately criminals, fraudsters find very vulnerable and very attractive. And they will still go after them without the least bit of remorse to steal every penny they can. And unfortunately, that's the world we live in. So the more we can do, I think, to educate everyone, but our senior citizens in particular, the better off we will all be as a society.
Well, hello, this is Don,
And this is Gina with Focused Healthy Family.
and this is podcast number 228. And today we're talking with Keith Slaughter. And Keith is a retired special agent with the FBI and a vice president of JetBlue. Plus, he has also, before that, before JetBlue, he served as a head staff security for Bridgewater Associates, the world's largest hedge fund, and the vice president of Strauss Friedberg's Business Intelligence and Investigation Division in Washington, D.C. But prior to that, he served as a FBI agent for 25 years, serving in Buffalo and Miami, and as a supervisor in a financial institution of fraud and computer crimes unit at FBI headquarters. 2006 CPA magazine, Mr. Slaughter was named as one of the world's 100 most influential CPAs. In 2010, he received the U.S. Presidential Ranking Award for oh gosh, this is a tough one, meritorious service and lifetime achievements. And here's what I found really interesting. While still in the FBI, he co-created, co-produced, and hosted San Diego's Most Wanted, The FBI Files, which aired on Saturday nights. He also co-created, co-produced Inside the FBI, 2-hour special for Disney Channel. And on top of that, while supervising the FBI headquarters, he created and co-produced a documentary film, Shattered Faith, White Collar Crimes in America, starring narrator Brian Dennehy. So want to welcome here, Keith. She and I have been talking about, wanting to get this out because, like you said, I think it's a really important part of what's going on for seniors nowadays. And of course, I'm getting in that place myself of senior, and I don't want that happen to me. I've had it. I've
Well,
had a couple of
you have it.
I've
You've
had
been
a couple
targeted.
instances with it, And so, anyway, thank you for being here, Keith. I really enjoy this.
Oh, absolutely. My pleasure to be here with y'all.
So, well, you've already talked about, going from CPA to, federal agent and all. Um, so I guess what I'd maybe start out with, maybe you could tell a story just to give the audience an idea of something that happened. You mentioned a couple of different stories, heartbreaking stories. Maybe you could mention one to kind of fulfill what you did and how you handled it.
Yeah, sure. I mean, when we worked on the disconnect case over those years, traveling around the country and going inside boiler rooms, talking to many of these fraudsters face to face, it was eye-opening to us, not just the lack of shame or anything, but just I don't know how to say it other than the rudeness with which many of these people, and most of them were quite young, in their
Mhm.
20s, maybe 30s, how they would treat these elderly. God forbid they would ever treat their own grandparents like this. And I'm not just talking about stealing money. I'm talking about the way they would berate them over the phone and scream at them to grab their checkbook and write the check, or
Well,
something bad was going to happen to them. And witnessing those sorts of things firsthand was was certainly disturbing. So when we had the actual takedown of that original case, which was on March 4th, 1993, and I can tell you that all the FBI people, well, the main core group of people involved in that case, we still celebrate that anniversary all these many years later, reflecting on that day. It was a very special day. And it was when we were able to go into some of these local boiler rooms on that day of takedown, not as an undercover agent, or excuse me, not as this fictitious sales personality, which is who we represented we were, but as an FBI agent, and basically look them in the eye and say, the game is over,
Mm.
and you're under arrest, and you're going to jail right now. And to see the looks on and to slam their phones down and unplug everything in the moment, to see the looks on their faces and the shame then, and that very quick understanding of what they were going to be facing was incredibly satisfying, I have to say.
I could imagine. I'm a big fan of FBI shows. Um,
Yeah. A little
and
too much sometimes.
I'm gonna dig up this the things you were part of because it is interesting and it is real. I watch things like Criminal Minds and it's all about
Yeah.
murder and all this. And I know it gets glorified and not exactly accurate, but I mean, there's so much truth to this. Don had his identity stolen. They were trying to buy a car in his name, and it happens. It's out there. I had a friend whose father was swindled out of money and things, and there's so many different ways that it's happening now. I had a call just a week ago, and I'm 56, so it's like, okay, this must mean I'm old because I got this call, and I'm trying to remember what he told me. He was such and such police officer from some police department, which we looked up, and it doesn't really exist. And I can't remember what he asked me first, but then he said, "Do you know that your husband's ankle alarm is off?" And I hung up on him and he called back and I actually picked up and he said, if you hang up on me again, I'm going to come to the house. And, I told him I don't think this is legitimate. And my kids are yelling at me, Mom, hang up the phone.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, it's just the boldness, I only imagine that he was wanting to solicit money from me under some, the false pretenses. But
Yeah, I think one thing you just mentioned there that you touched on is incredibly true. And that is that, and not just elderly people, but a lot of people, especially who are a little bit older at least, um, are very hesitant to hang up the phone on someone
hmm
because we consider it rude. And
hmm
we were brought up in a way where you didn't do that. You didn't hang up on people. You didn't
hmm
slam the phone down. You didn't tell people to go to you know where before slamming the phone down. And you just didn't do that sort of thing. And a person's word was their bond. A handshake meant a lot. And now all that is out the window. And, one of the things we learned was, trying to communicate to people, just simply hang up the phone. But we came to learn that for a lot of people, that wasn't so simple at all. They just had a hard time bringing themselves to do that.
I'm an occupational therapist and I work in geriatric rehab and I'm with patients sometimes and I see this happen and they get these phone calls. I mean, I worked in short-term rehab. People are there from being in the hospital and they're getting calls about things, and they're answering questions. And I've learned from my kids that you got to be careful if they record your voice saying yes or something, that they can use it, to get into your information and things. But yeah, you're right. They're polite, and it's rare I meet someone who just hangs up. Now there's ID on the phone, so some people don't answer if they don't recognize the number. And to me, that's a big benefit because, like you said, these people they're not going to just hang up on somebody. They're going to take what they're saying seriously. And I'm usually sitting next to them going, this is a scam. Please hang up your phone.
Yes, that's exactly what they need to do. As difficult as it is cut off communications as quickly as they can, and make sure they are thinking clearly about how they're going to proceed with whatever's being presented to them because most criminals in the white collar world uh, will attempt to use urgency to their benefit.
Mhm.
And they will attempt to instill this mindset of if you don't act immediately, something really bad is going to happen, whatever that really bad thing is going to, it may be. You're
Mhm.
going to lose money, a family member is going to be harmed. There will be some catastrophe awaiting you if you don't make this decision and do this very quickly. And that is always a huge red flag that it's time to, at the very least, pause, but probably hang up or cease communications immediately because that's not how business is normally transacted.
Right. Yeah, I was this the person who called me, he actually called back like 5 or 6 times after I hung up the second time, like kept calling back. And I'm like, wow,
Yeah, yeah,
the persistency of it.
yeah,
But
yeah. The pushiness is just, yeah, is not normal. Is not the way not the way things should work.
When you talked about kind of the evolution of how things have gone, so maybe we can talk a little bit about that because I mean, you go back. When did you start? 25 years or so ago, you
Yeah, I
started.
started in 1987, so a long, long time ago. And the disconnect telemarketing case was from around 90 to 90, early 93. So
mhm,
I had about, I don't know, 6 or 7 years under my belt during that particular time. But in some ways, things have changed a lot. And in other ways, not so much. I was looking at some statistics recently. Sometimes when I present, I will ask the audience, I'll put up a slide where I will ask them these questions of who I will ask them, who are these people? Who are these people in the United States? Of those still attending high school or college, about a third have stolen from their parents or relatives during the previous year.
wow.
A quarter have stolen from a friend during the past year. Almost half have stolen, shoplifted during the past year. And then I will go on to say that they also represent 100% of every individual in every new FBI agent class. And the answer to the question of who are these people is they're 42% of the US population, and they're mostly Gen Xers and Gen Zers who are in today's labor force. Now, I don't say this to pick on Generation X or Generation Z. They're really no more, culpable than anyone else in any other generation, but it really does speak to the dynamic. And when I compared those statistics of what fraud looks like today to what it looked like just before Enron collapsed, because a lot of people consider the 2001 Enron collapse kind of the beginning of really bad fraud in a lot of ways. I don't know whether or not that's a good barometer, but it's a common one. And the types of fraud and the statistics back then, all these many years ago, were very comparable to what I just read, from both a personal and a corporate standpoint. Just a lack of ethics that the average person, I think, finds a bit shocking. When I first said the very first stat, I saw your facial expression, and you were surprised by that. And I think
Mhm.
most people are. They look around and they're like, "Really? There's this many people that behave this way?" And unfortunately, there are. And it's an ethical dilemma that this country has faced for a long time now.
Well, I would imagine too. You didn't have as much probably when you were in it, but the right now we've got AI and internet
Yeah, yeah,
that are playing a lot even heavier role into this, I would imagine. Is that true?
absolutely is true. And AI in particular, things in that world are moving at breakneck speed.
Hmm.
Uh, if we were having this conversation even just 3 years ago, even 2 years ago, if we were having this conversation in May of 2024 instead of 26, um, we'd probably be discussing this a bit differently. That's how rapidly the world of AI is advancing. And the scary thing about it too is that it is a highly complex world that honestly very few people, including myself, really understand.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Everyone knows it's about computers and their ability to kind of function independently away from humans and perhaps learn as they go. But beyond that, there's so many pieces and so many dynamics that the average person just has no idea. So as a country, as a world, we've put a lot of faith into a very small population of individuals who are revolutionizing artificial intelligence and in many ways kind of hoping for the best that it's going to go uh, in a productive way for humankind. But to your point about, yeah, fraud particularly, yes, AI is a tool that has been developed and used to the detriment of many people, both personally and at the corporate level. And the ability of everyday available tools that are out there today, like Chat GPT, for instance. And this is not a slam against Chat GPT at all. It's that is an AI communication tool that
Hmm.
many individuals and um, companies use very effectively today. But the point here is that AI applications like that have an incredible ability to uh, sound like us,
Hmm.
both
Mm-hmm.
verbally and in writing. And
Hmm.
I saw that firsthand in my time at JetBlue. I'll tell a real quick story. When it
Mm-hmm.
was my aha moment was about a year ago when I was at JetBlue. Every year we would produce a series of three different anti-fraud awareness videos for all of our employees throughout the company. And I would be in those videos. I would be like the host and go through it. And they'd only be about 4 or 5 minutes in length, and but they were very popular. And we would do that on different topics every year. And as part of the production process, I worked with a production team there, videographers and such. And I'd give them the general information and they would write a script for me. We would tweak it, work on it, and then we would record and I would go through the script. And that's how it worked. And the very last one I did, we were rushed for time and the script was not forthcoming. And I kept asking the producer, when am I going to get the script? I'm not, I want to see what I'm going to say before. And he's like, I know, I'm working on it. Well, we get in the day of filming, we get in the room. Finally, he puts down a script in front of me. He's like, I'm sorry this was so late. And normally, when the scripts came in, I would have numerous changes. And this particular script came in, and I read through it quickly, and I said, "This is really good. This is really, you guys did really good." For the first time I actually have no changes, no edits for you. And he confided in me, and he said, "I have to be honest." He said, "We took all your previous videos and fed them into an AI program, and AI created this. We had nothing to do with it." And we said not only did they create the content, but they did it in a voice that sounds very much like you. And it
Oh
did.
my.
It sounded like it was written for me. I could not believe it
Wow.
that a machine had written and crafted this in like Keith Slaughter style that would have fooled me. If someone 5 years down the road would have come to me, or even a year or two down the road would have come to me and said, "Hey, Keith, look at this script. This is something you said on a program. This is something you came up with on a program." I would have said, oh, yeah, I vaguely remember that." And then they would have told me, "No, you never said that. AI created that." I wouldn't have even known. I wouldn't have even remembered that. But
Mm-hmm.
that's just one, example of how powerful the tool can be. And
Hmm.
it's not hard to imagine ways that fraudsters will use that sort of capability to trick individuals out of their money.
Hmm.
When if they think they're hearing a recognizable voice that
Hmm.
really isn't, it's computer generated,
Hmm.
or they think they're receiving a document of some sort that they recognize from someone who they're close with, when in fact it has nothing to do with them, and that is very scary.
It is. I mean, this even without the AI, the stuff that's going on the internet between Facebook scams and, you know, there's so much already, and it does, thinking about that, just, you know, only
Yeah,
I can't even imagine, what they're going
yeah,
to do with that.
yeah,
Have
yeah.
you seen the movie Thelma?
I have not.
It's you might want to think about it. It goes a little off track of what is, but it's about a senior person who and the AI uses her daughter's voice
Yeah,
and comes across and says, you've got to send I can't remember what send
yeah,
me
Then money.
ten thousand
yeah,
dollars by
yeah.
tomorrow or I'm gonna be and of course now she takes it and she goes after the scammers, which she finds out is in the same city,
Yeah,
which
she
is a
takes
little
it,
off
yeah,
base,
she
but
takes it in her own hands, and it's got funny adventure of a senior, getting back their money. But
I'll have
yeah.
to check that out. But those kidnapping schemes, like what you're sounds like you're describing, have become all too common. Where a recognizable voice, dad, grandma, whoever it is, I'm being held, and they're going to hurt me if they don't get $25,000 wired to their bank account in the next 15 minutes or
Hmm.
something like that. And just so many elements there that they're playing on, of course, your emotions. Oh my God, my loved one is in danger, perhaps. And then they're doubling down on that with the urgency that if you don't act immediately, um, something very bad is going to happen. And there are people, I guess, who would think, even if I spend the money and I'm wrong, I would rather have the satisfaction of knowing my granddaughter, whoever it is safe, even if
Hmm.
I lose X amount of money. And that's pretty depressing to think about too.
Hmm.
yeah. Now, we've talked a lot about telemarketing. What other types of, I don't know if you've worked with other types of scams that are out there for seniors.
Yeah, there are several. I mean, that was one we just talked about with that sort of kidnapping drama where, or some threat against a person using AI to replicate a voice, usually a voice that is recognizable, instilling urgency, and then demanding immediate payment in some way. So that's very, very common. And what I tell people is, anytime you're being pressed urgent, something is very urgent, you need to hit pause and slow it all down because the odds of it truly being urgent and something horrible really happening are incredibly minute. So, but that's what the scammer is counting on, is that sense of urgency that you will succumb to it and do whatever they want to do. So, that one of the first things I say is definitely slow down before, and then take the time to try to reach out to that person, even if it means you have to hang up and discontinue the conversation, and independently verify
Hmm.
that what you're being told is okay.
Hmm.
So yeah, a third person can get around that, obviously put that to rest and say, no, no, I'm fine, I'm okay.
Hmm.
Another type, you're good. Another type of scheme is that's out there, particularly targeting the elderly, is what's called synthetic identity theft. And that's where fake identities are created around a real social security number. So, and then a whole identity is created starting with that one piece of information. And I think I should probably start by saying that, anyone who believes that their social security number or other identifying information has not been compromised in some way is kidding themselves in this day and age. Now, when I say compromise, I don't mean they've been scammed and they've lost money, but I do mean that that information is no longer private. It
Mhm.
has been exploited and gotten into hands of people who could choose to do something if they wanted to. And it's true for all of us. I mean, we can go on and on about all the many breaches over the years where millions of records were. And we're at the point now in 2026 where I don't know if there's a human being on this planet other than a toddler who hasn't had their identity shared in some way. But in this particular instance with the synthetic identity theft, it's building an identity off of a social security number. They will often do it with a young children because a kid may have or they can assign a social security number, or if they have one assigned, they don't have any use for it until they start
Mhm.
working, maybe when they're in their teens. So it's just kind of sitting dormant, and that gives a scammer opportunity to use it in bad ways. And then they will slowly try to build credit around that social security number. And
Mhm.
these scammers are the opposite of the AI ones who create urgency. These scammers are incredibly patient. They will cultivate this for years in
Mhm.
order to get that social security level, the credit history and everything to the level that they want it to be before they actually attempt to exploit it. So that is something to look out for. I think one of the best ways to combat that for anyone of any age, but I would say particularly seniors, is absolutely free. And that is number one. I hope that people do go into Social Security and understand what their benefits are periodically, whether it's annually or whatever it may be. But you can also, for free, sign up online. It's a government app called My Social Security. And it's very simple to sign on. It's very simple to sign up. And what that does is it protects you from any copying or duplication of your social security number. So if there's ever another social security number that matches yours, that comes up to another name, that will immediately be investigated and ended. So I can't say that strongly enough. It's the simplest thing in the world to do, and it will give you incredible peace of mind for that particular type of scam.
That's good to know.
No, it's good because I wrote it down because, like I said, I had that happen to me.
Is that
Yeah,
what they
And
did, we think? We think they somehow they created, I know, an I
oh, they had the whole thing because
license with, yeah.
they did my um, license. They put their own picture on it. You know, luckily the car dealership that they were trying to buy it online, and the car dealership said there was something about his answers that threw me off, and that he decided to look me up on the internet and found me and called me, and that started the whole thing. But I don't think I went to that Social Security. I'm going to go to that one real
yeah,
quickly probably, and
yeah. Do it. It's simple. It probably will take a whole 5 minutes of your day.
yeah.
And I think you'll sleep better at night knowing that there's some watchdog out there, uh, in this case, the Social Security Administration, who's actively trying to keep this from happening. So, yeah,
Yeah, I know my mom's in her 80s and been on Medicare a while, and she talks about how they keep reissuing a new, Medicare card and a new number, and it's for this very reason.
yeah,
It's, when I went to college, it was 1988, but my student ID was my social security number. And there,
yeah,
obviously they would never do that now, but I think about it and I'm like, I didn't think at the time that that was a big deal, but things have changed a lot.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you talk about how simple it is to go on to that website to do that. When Don had his identity stolen, you had to freeze your credit. You had to contact like the three different credit bureaus, right, Don?
Yeah.
It was quite a hassle that you went
Yes, it
through.
is. Yep.
Um,
And calling the police was pretty
They
much useless.
they
I
told you to
mean,
do that to file the report, but yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, they get so many of those probably every day. There was a time many years ago when that was considered a big deal, and they would jump on that sort of thing. But it's become so commonplace that yeah, it's almost treated like, petty theft or something.
Hmm.
but I just this is a little off. But what are the people that were like arrested? What kind of what kind of time do they spend in jail?
Yeah, that's a great question. It really varies. Historically, white collar criminals, there's always exceptions, but white collar criminals have generally been sentenced on the lower end of,
Hmm.
they have not been punished as harshly as many other types of crimes that are committed. There are exceptions, of course. I mean, people like Bernie Madoff, who, basically got a life sentence based on, the magnitude of the fraud he committed. But if you think about it, if you rob a bank where there's a high probability that eventually you're going to get caught, that sentence is probably going to be much higher than if you defraud a company internally. You know, great example. I mentioned Enron earlier.
Yeah.
The individuals there who ended up going to jail, the CEO Ken Lay, the president Jeff Skilling, the CFO Andy Fastow, they all did go to jail, but they all got out, within a few years, which I think surprised a lot of people, anyone who followed that. I believe Ken Lay has passed away, but Skilling and Fastow have kept a fairly low profile. They're not trying to, garner attention because there probably are people who would wonder why did someone like that only serve X amount of time in jail? And for the telemarketing cases that we worked back then in the 90s, it varied. We did see sentences on a few occasions as high as 20 years.
Hmm.
Some of the lower level people got a year or two. Many were in the 5 to 10 year range. So I wouldn't say a slap on the wrist by any sense, but when you compare that to some other crimes, um, white collar criminals tend to get a break a little bit in a lot of courtrooms from experience.
Well, and if they could compare it to what, like you said, some of the people that have no longer have their savings anymore, that are kind of not maybe destitute, but they're much worse place there. If they could compare that, they would give a much bigger sentence because I mean, some of those people
Yeah, because they're not
are
going to get that
lost
money,
now, you
not going
know.
to get that money back, right? It's
Yeah, and certainly, um, I think judges who hear the stories from victims, and they don't always hear those stories.
mm,
They might hear a couple on if a case actually goes to trial, but oftentimes, if an individual pleads guilty and is awaiting sentencing, in cases like that, a lot of times not a single victim will be heard from.
mm,
Maybe the prosecutor will regale the judge with these horror stories, but not necessarily face to face, where
Mm.
they're looking each other in the eye.
hmm.
And that can make a world of difference.
Well, is there, not any other scams that you can see? You mentioned already the
Yeah,
synthetic
tips
one.
for our listeners. Yeah, of things to
Yeah,
watch out for.
I mean, I would say anything with bank accounts. There's certain types of frauds that are called account takeover frauds, where a scammer will try to impersonate you and gain control of your bank accounts so that they are accessing and conducting business because the bank or the institution believes it's you because they've obtained enough of your information. They've been able to obtain some personal information and, more importantly, your account and password information so that they can get into an account. directly without you even having any knowledge of it. Same thing when it comes to like wire transfer fraud, which is very common in today's world, especially around real estate transactions or sizable sums where someone is able to basically impersonate you and gain access to your account and operate as if it really is you, which is why I tell people, um, I would hope in this day and age, if they're not there yet, they're close. Um, where that is where multi-factor authentication on
Hmm.
your accounts is incredibly important. Everything I just described of someone being able to do that could probably be combated very effectively with that one step,
Mm,
ensuring that in addition to your login ID and your password, that you have a third-party verification in place, which is usually a text to your phone or a phone call or whatever.
Right, right.
Seemingly simple, and I know that it's a little bit of a hassle. It's like one more thing I got to do, but it's an incredible safeguard in that situation. My friend Frank Abagnale of Catch Me If You Can fame, I mean, he'll be the first one to say he thinks passwords are a waste of time. Passwords outlived their usefulness a long time ago. Today, it's all about pass keys, some sort of biometric access that gets you into your accounts.
mm.
I'm talking to, and I'm not trying to sell Apple here. I'm speaking to you on a Macintosh right now. So my computer has a pass key where I put my finger on there.
Yep.
So that's how I get into my computer. A lot of PCs don't have that yet. I think they will eventually. But that one thing alone, just my touching that, keeps anyone from grabbing my laptop and being able to access it because they're not going to be able to replicate my fingerprint on
Right.
that pad. So this laptop is useless to anyone other than me. And this is the direction that we must go to protect ourselves.
Hmm.
Passwords are barely a safeguard anymore.
Hmm.
Barely in the, the thinnest terms. It's just the advancements in technology and everything are such that we just cannot have much. No one should have a great deal of confidence. Well, yeah, I
Right.
have a password that, is strong, who cares? I mean, it could still, I shouldn't say who cares. A strong password is much, much better than a weak password. So it does matter. I don't mean to make it sound like it doesn't, but
Right.
passwords alone are not the best solution to safeguarding everything about you, including your
Sure.
finances. Yeah.
Yeah, after you got your stuff stolen, we went through and changed all our passwords, and it's a lot to do. I mean, I had used kind of one password for a lot of things and realized that's not a good idea to do. And it's tedious, but yeah, I have a MacBook too, and I love that I can just touch it with my finger and turn it on, and
Yeah.
that security does feel a lot more.
Well, I had one of the thought when you're talking about scam, and this I don't know if you had any reference to this, if this is really real. I saw a movie some years ago about a group that was coming in and scamming older people, getting them to claim that they were not fit for and taking away I'm trying to remember the
Power of attorney,
power
yeah,
of
determining
attorney
they were in,
and sending them into and then selling their house and their furniture and all their stuff while they were being in a nursing center or
they were
wherever it
deemed
might be.
incompetent. Yeah.
Have you ever
Yeah.
run into any, is that a possibility? Is that something you've run into?
I'm sure it's a possibility. I have not personally run into that.
Oh,
That sort of thing where, someone has lost all control in that way. My stepmother just went into a nursing home, and, I have full faith that everything will be okay for her there. But I'll have to try to hunt that down and give that a look. I haven't personally heard about that situation occurring.
well, I mean, in the movie, the person that he had done that to wasn't incapacitated.
Yeah.
They had a
Yeah.
company
And
that
that
was
was a
scamming it,
fictional story,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, things, I mean, things happen that are hard to believe sometimes, but do actually happen. And with all this going on, it's a lot. It's everywhere. It's, text message on your phone. It's, um, phone calls that are scams, things through Facebook and other and emails and things. And Yeah, it's just hard to think about when will this
Yeah,
stop, and
yeah,
because there's so much of it, like these people aren't getting caught, right? I
right,
mean,
right.
because they don't have the time to invest in it, to investigate and
Yeah, yeah. There are limitations there, and that's something everyone should be aware of. Different investigative agencies at different levels, federal, state, local. There are guidelines from a prosecution standpoint as far as a dollar loss thresholds that must be met for an investigation to be initiated. There are exceptions once in a while, but for the most part, those are the rules.
Mhm.
And it's just the way it is because fraud is so rampant in today's world that there are not enough investigators to open a case on every single complaint that comes in about
Mhm.
somebody who lost money. It's unfortunate, but it is the way it is. The yeah, the it's not an equal balance, unfortunately.
Yeah. So, any last minute tips or thoughts for our listeners? I know we've talked about if you would repeat again the website to go to, and we'll have that up on the description as well.
Yeah, start with that. Go to mysocialsecurity.com and sign yourself up for that. That way, you're going to be protected from any duplication, replication of your Social Security number. And I believe the Social Security Administration does a really good job of that, very aggressively trying to ensure that that does not happen. If any individual can convert almost all of their accounts to multi-factor authentication in a fairly reasonable time. Look, I know it's a bit of a pain. You've
Mm-hmm.
got to go into, but it's become much easier than it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
Every single account you have access to, whether it's your bank accounts, investment accounts, Medicare, other government accounts, your airline frequent flyers, your hotel point, everything, it's pretty easy to go into your account and go into your personal information. And somewhere in there, in that company's, in that website, there will be just a box to check. If you
Mm-hmm.
want to start enabling MFA, multi-factor authentication, and the choice as to how to do it, whether it's a text, which is what most people choose
Mm-hmm.
to get a text, and then you enter that number and you're good to go. I bet most people, even if you have a lot of accounts, I bet you could implement that. The typical person could implement that in a morning. If you give yourself a few hours, you could crank that out on every account you own over 2 or 3 hours, and it's going to be one of the best investments of time you ever made.
It helps me appreciate it because I have found it annoying. But now hearing everything you're saying, it makes a lot of sense. And it's like, okay, yeah, I'm going to make sure there is multi-factor authentication. Yeah, because of the rampantness of this that's happening with fraud out there and
Yeah.
ever evolving new ways, like we talked about with AI. So it sounds like you go out and you speak now on this topic.
Yeah, I do. I just started, am starting doing some speaking. So I speak both on fraud trends, some of which we've discussed here today, and then I also speak on observations on leadership, what I've observed in, effective leaders and what I call 7 key attributes to being an effective leader. Just through mine, I'm not saying I was that, but what I've been able to observe over several different careers with different entities. So that's where I focus a lot of my time now.
Okay, fascinating. So where can people learn more about you or if they have further questions or want to book you to speak at something?
Yeah, sure. They could go to my website, If they want to reach me personally, that's fine. It's my website is www.slaughterspeaks1word.com, or reach out to me, Keith at slaughterspeaks.com.
And we'll put all those up on for the audience too, so that'll be up there too, and we'll give the full bio for you for all this stuff, all the great stuff you've been through
And I'm
too.
going to
So
check out the documentary FBI information to find the real stories and not the fictional one. But thank you so much for joining us, Keith, today. This has been eye-opening, and there's so much to this discussion that I'm sure if we would have it again in another 2 years, there's going to be a whole nother layer, of everything that goes on with this type of fraud.
Oh, I'm sure. And thanks for having me. It's been fun. I've enjoyed it. Thanks.
So thanks for joining us. Thank you to all our listeners for listening today at Focused Healthy Family. If today's conversation has helped you, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and share the podcast with someone who might benefit from it. And in particular today, any of us can be targets to fraud. If stress, panic, or overwhelm are becoming part of your daily routine, consider exploring Don's EFT Discovery Series. EFT tapping is often described as weird, but it works. Many people start skeptical, but after a few sessions, they're saying, wow, look what EFT has done for me. For wellness tips, caregiver resources, and more episodes, visit us at focusedhealthyfamily.com or focusedhealthyfamilypodcast.com. You can connect with us on social media, Facebook at Focused Healthy Family, Instagram, Focused Healthy Family 1, and we're on YouTube where you can watch the podcasts as well as listen to them anywhere you listen to a podcast. New episodes of the Focused Healthy Family podcast are released every Thursday. Don is available to speak to your organizations, caregiver groups, healthcare teams, and community groups about practical ways to reduce stress and build resilience in caregiving communities. For more information about booking Don to speak at your location, please reach out to schedule a presentation or a workshop. And remember, how you speak to your children and your loved ones today shapes their future and yours.